We begin today with South Africa, where racial tensions are threatening to erupt following the murder of white supremacist leader Eugene Terreblanche. South Africa's President Jacob Zuma called for calm and national unity on Sunday.
It is important that all leaders who lead this country, from different political formations and non-governmental organizations, should unite in the call for calm in this country. I condemn this act, cowardly act, and the murder of Mr. Terreblanche. It's not acceptable in our society, in our democracy. We all should unite against violent crime. And certainly, in due course, we will know as to what is it that led to this terrible action.
The killing is believed to have followed a reported pay dispute with black workers, but members of Terreblanche's Afrikaner Resistance Movement, or AWB, says he was hacked to death with machetes in a politically motivated attack. The incident comes at a time of heightened racial tensions in South Africa, exacerbated by a controversy over the head of the ruling ANC party's youth league singing an anti-apartheid song with lyrics that translate into "shoot the boer." Boer is Afrikaans for farmer. Well, for more, I'm joined here in New York by a leading South African scholar who was barred from entering the United States for over 3 years. Adam Habib is a political science professor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research at the University of Johannesburg. In October 2006, the Department of Homeland Security refused him entry into the United States and revoked his visa without explanation. The following year, the ACLU, along with the American Sociological Association, the American Association of University Professors, the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, and the Boston Coalition for Palestinian Rights filed a lawsuit, arguing that Habib was being denied entry on ideological grounds. Well, earlier this year, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton withdrew the ban on a visa for Habib. Adam Habib, welcome to Democracy Now!
My pleasure.
Before I ask you about South Africa, how was it coming into the country after these years that you were excluded?
Well, it's useful. You know, it's interesting. I came into Washington and there was a INS official who had my name on a placard and said, "Habibs, please follow me." And I wasn't sure what to expect. And then they took me to the special booth. They cleared out my visa regulations and my passport. They cleared that of my delegation. They facilitated us access through customs. They even offered us a vehicle to deliver us to the hotel. So I felt like a rock star. I was treated wonderfully, completely an extreme difference from what I received in 2006. So,
why were you excluded?
We're not sure. I mean, there's a couple of speculations. The first and the most obvious is that it could be racial profiling. That's what I initially thought. But when the issue received the kind of prominence that it did, and they still continue to do so, there was some belief. People in the presidency in South Africa suggested that it had to do with my opposition to the war in Iraq. I had led protests. I had spoken at rallies in Durban in South Africa around the Iraq war and the anti-war demonstrations. But, others have been able to get into the United States even though they participated in this. So that one didn't make sense. My own view is, frankly, that the United States bureaucracy, like all bureaucracies, works on a formula. Muslim background, you get 2 points. Critical of American foreign policy, you get 3 points. Travels a lot, 2 points. And I think I went over some kind of magical number that they've figured out. So a lot of coincidence, I think, in part, a part of it ideological, in that clearly they felt that I was critical of the U.S. government, which I was. I think that, frankly, the Bush administration brought the world to a very dangerous place. I think the Iraq war was a complete disaster. I think we are paying the consequences for that, both in the United States, in the polarized atmosphere that I see now, but also in the world more broadly. Places like South Africa, places like the Middle East. I think the world is a much more dangerous place than 10 years ago, and I think that the Bush administration had a lot to do with that.
Now what's happening in South Africa, this killing of the white supremacist leader, Eugene Terreblanche. He was killed by 2 of his workers. They said that he wasn't paying them, and they waited. I think they called the authorities to pick them up. They waited to be picked up. They weren't just sought out. They didn't go into hiding. Others are saying it has to do with this increased racial polarization in South Africa. What do you think?
Look, I think Eugene Tereblanche is somebody who's got a track record of treating people badly. I mean, not only was he a white supremacist leader that was received notoriety in the dawn of the South African transition, but about 5 or 6 years later, he was actually imprisoned for having treated a worker fairly badly, of actually beating a worker. And that's what he spent 4 or 5 years in prison. He was then released, I think, a couple of years ago. So I'm not entirely surprised that there was a wage dispute. He has a track record of treating workers badly. Having said that, you cannot resolve a wage dispute through murder. I mean, that's just unacceptable in any society. And it does have to say, why is South Africa so prone to violent crime? What is it about our society that drives that? And it seems to me that there is no question about it, that we are a very violent society. In part, that violent society has got to do with the polarized character of our society. Economic inequalities in our society increased in the last 15 years. It's one of the few societies in the world that, in the midst of a democratic transition, increased its economic inequalities. So that's something that we have to worry about. It's not simply poverty. There are many places in the African continent that are far more poorer than South Africa, yet have far less violent crime. And in a lot of ways, this violence is a product of the polarized nature of our society. In a lot of ways, South Africa reminds me on a micro scale of the US in this regard. Its problems are more acute. It has a more acute problem base. But the problems I see in the United States are very similar, from healthcare to the polarized conversation in the political mainstream, to all of these kinds of things. I see the same things in South Africa, except it's much more acute in the South African context, and it's probably much more micro. It's located at a particular state level. The size of Iowa, for instance, is what South Africa is.
Adam Habib, explain the significance of this song that was sung on your campus?
It was sung on a campus of the University of Johannesburg. Julius Malema, who's the president of the ANC Youth League, was invited to this campus by the SRC to give a lecture. In the lecture, he sang the words, "Kill the Boer, they've killed the farmer." Now, this is a song that had emerged at the height of the anti-apartheid struggles in South Africa, in the mobilizations that happened in the late 80s, early 1990s, by young radicals, if you like. And in that heated environment, the song had become quite popular. Kill the Boer, kill the farmer, meaning figuratively, symbolically speaking, that you need to struggle against the apartheid state and fight the apartheid state. And the symbol of the farmer being the old traditional Afrikaner, if you like. And the apartheid state was meant to have represented the interests of the Afrikaner. In 95, 96, the song resurfaced, if you like, in that period, particularly by the ANC Youth League, and then died a quiet death for a long period. So it hasn't been in the public discourse for about 6, 7 years. And Julius Malema, who's been known to make some fairly controversial statements over the last year or two, who's been an avid supporter of Jacob Zuma, for instance, raised suddenly at this rally, sang the song again. It was deliberately done to provoke national headlines, and it did. It received national headlines. The university authorities very quickly moved to condemn it, and we did condemn it. But clearly, I wasn't surprised when I heard Eugene Tereblanche about his murder. I immediately thought that there would be some link that is made. I don't think there's a direct correlation. But I do think it's not surprising that there would be that kind of link. It's a silly statement to make. It's a silly song to sing in the kind of heated atmosphere. Now
they're talking about outlawing the song.
There is a talk about it. There was a court action that suggested that this song should be outlawed. There was a decision made in this regard, and the ANC was going to challenge it. In this kind of heated atmosphere, I can't imagine the ANC doing that. I think they might pull back a little. But it was a silly song, and it was meant to rile people, and that's what it actually did. But of course, it can have all kinds of consequences in the kind of heated environment of South Africa.
We're going to break, but then we're going to come back. Adam Habib, South African political scientist at the University of Johannesburg, barred from entering the United States for over 3 years until the Obama administration withdrew the ban earlier this year. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back in a minute.